another fantastic day. Here is Atlantean Gatekeeper, and I am your host, Stefan Palczewski. Plenty of you watching this are terrified of dying and death and everything that is associated with that. There is a reason why we have so many NDEs in this world, examples from people from different walks of life. Some are very sophisticated, some are very simple people. To give you an insight into what you may expect during that process of dying, but also what to expect when you cross to a different part of reality. We do exist through every possible reality there are. Yet because of the past 3,000 years, we programmed ourselves to keep forgetting that, to shield ourselves from that. We wanted to know how far we can go into that very deep, dark place and then find our way back. I will tell you my story about NDE, although I have no idea how to classify that. After what happened to me, I asked the surgeon that was performing that procedure what happened there. But he explained to me that he is performing so many procedures a day that he has no idea what I am talking about. He doesn't remember everything that happens over there. However, I remember some things that were happening to me during that process. That procedure, that it should be on file, that should be in writing in that report, especially when someone says he's going to the shock. That should be reported, that should be recorded. However, there is not a single mention of that. Anyway, the reason I was in hospital in 1997, on the beginning of December, it was because I was having, prior to that, many stomach problems, many intestine problems. I was having constant cramps, pains, and other symptoms that were very unpleasant. Through investigation, they find out that I have very enlarged lymph nodes close to small intestines in my lower abdomen. The suspicion was that they might be cancerous tumors. So instead of going through biopsy using needle to take a sample and find out what's going on over there, they decided to open me up they sliced me about 7 inches to the right from my navel. They opened me basically like a pig. They took out the intestines. They looked around looking for some surprises. I don't know what they were trying to find over there. So Dr. Gioletto, he was the one who was performing that procedure. He just took a sample from one of the lymph nodes, which was the size of a large plum. I don't know what the size was of the others, because each time I was talking to the oncologist, he was changing his stories, and I was furious with him, and eventually I told him to get lost, and I started doing stuff on my own, and thanks to that I am here. If I was listening to his advice, it was very unlikely that I would be talking to you today. So it is almost 30 years after that procedure, and you can still see the magnitude of that scarring in this clip that I am including here for you today. So I'm going to tell you my story, what happened during that procedure. On that day, I was in a hospital with our kids. They were 2 and 3. They were terrified. They didn't know what's going on. I know that my family meant well, but they were expecting the worst, that probably I have cancer, and when someone has cancer, then that's not a good prediction. So I know I was in double pain because I didn't want them to feel that way. I saw them. I noticed that they were in very confusing state and worried. But the anesthetic took care of that. I was out very quickly, and as I was dozing into the darkness, I suddenly found myself above my body. I was floating close to the ceiling. It was very uncomfortable. I looked at the ceiling and I was not happy about that. So I was trying to turn myself downwards to see what's going on below. But I wasn't interested in that as well. Somehow I found myself on the doorsteps of one of my, at that time, friend. She was coming from somewhere, and I make like 2 or 3 steps towards her to embrace her, and when I did that, she fell on the stairs. And when she fell, she started screaming, and so did I. I started screaming because I was in excruciating pain. Turns out that the anesthetic stopped working because I was using St. John wort prior to that, and I didn't disclose that to the doctors, and I should, because the anesthetics they have tendency to interact with, especially with those oils, the St. John wort. They do interact. So if you are taking that prior to any procedures, please don't wait until you have some kind of reaction. Now it would be a good idea to explain to you why I did show up at her doorsteps. We were supposed to leave together and go into the sunset. Simply, it was supposed to be last day on earth for both of us. I remember that I was trying to scream really loud, but I couldn't because I had a pipe in my throat, and I screamed anyway. And I remember, like somewhere from a distance, that one of the nurses is saying, "He's going into a shock." So the next thing I remember, the surgeon, he dropped himself on my body to, I guess, prevent the guts to just fly out from my stomach and be all over the operating room. And from that, I deducted that he was already in the process of closing me. He was placing the last stitches and the clamps, you know how those metal clamps they put on the end to keep that stitching together so it doesn't open up. And that's when the anesthetic stopped working, and that's when I was in excruciating freaking pain. And when that happened, very quickly I passed out. I found myself in a complete darkness. But that wasn't scary darkness at all. In fact, it was the most peaceful, serene moment of my life. It was amazing. And I was aware of that, and I was asking myself, where am I? What is happening right now? What is this place? And as I am wandering through this hall, trying to process what just happened, where I was, to my right, like a foggy something starts flowing towards me, and then it starts getting more visible, and was in the shape of a peanut. The background changed to this gorgeous, fascinating, beautiful dark indigo, and that peanut started shaping itself even more. But I noticed in that peanut, the whole peanut was sparkling, and it was also pulsating, and it was moving, like the outer layer. It was floating slowly, resembling the shape of a infinity sign. I figured out that later on what that meant, what that is, and I will share that with you some other time, not today. I am only going to tell you what happened during that whole procedure. As I was wondering what it is, I was asking one more time, what is this? What am I looking at? Where am I? And to my surprise, this loud, booming voice said to me, "This is your existence. This is your cosmic existence." Wow. The next voice, it was, "What's your name? Do you know who you are? Do you know your name? Do you know where you are right now?" I'm saying, "Oh, damn it." That was the nurse trying to figure out if I am already wake up, if I woke up already, or what's the situation, how I feel. I will explain that voice later on and the meaning of this whole thing in some other time. This whole episode started a series of events that they followed me ever since. For example, when I was in the process of recovering from that procedure, because opening like that 7 inches, you need at least a couple of weeks to recover from that. And I was very, very weak. I was so wasted that I looked like a skeleton, basically. I lost a lot of weight, and I was like the guy from the death camp. And I remember that one night I am talking to my ex, and I am saying to her, "You know what? I had this very strange vision that I saw Xenia." I changed that name for a reason. I will explain that in a bit. And she said, "Oh yeah, she fell on the stairs, and when you were in the hospital, she admitted herself exactly at the very time that you were under the knife. So then I realized, oh crap. So everything that I was imagining, it was an imagination that really actually happened. It took me about 2 months to recover. I started walking much earlier, a few weeks after that. Like I think 2 week, second week, third week, I already was up and walking very slowly. Something very, very strange was happening during that time. I could be outside. I was aware, for example, that snow was, because that was winter, when the snow was falling down, I could hear the flakes hitting each other. It was like a swooshy sound. It was very peculiar, very unusual. How can I hear that the snow is coming down? Another unusual thing that was happening to me, I could, in my mind, see a car pulling to the parking lot, and I knew what color it is, what model. A few months after I already recovered, a few months later, we invited some members of my family and her family to visit us, and this was really bizarre and very uncomfortable afterwards, because when he was the husband of that lady that was visiting us, coming to our apartment, I was standing on a balcony and I asked him down, yelling, "I smell beer on you." And he didn't say anything. But when he came to our apartment and said, "Why did you do that?" "I smell beer on you." I said, "Yes, I had a glass of beer before I was coming here to your place. But how do you know that?" Well, this is one of those strange things that was happening to me, that I suddenly not only could smell him that day, but when I recovered and I started driving, I could smell drunk drivers in front of me. That was really bizarre. And then it came the awareness that I could help dead people, that I could see dead people, I could talk to dead people, I could interact with dead people. Even though I had episodes prior to that, yet this now became more and more intense, more real, more normal. Yeah, I had those episodes. They were not anymore something unusual to me. Now let's talk about Xenia. I changed that name from the real name because I found her 20 years after this whole what happened. We talk. I explained to her what happened, and I wanted to know from her how she remembers that. So according to her, she was coming home, and when she found herself on those steps, apparently those steps were icy. So she remembers that when she slept, she had some kind of keys or something in her pocket in the jacket, and that saved her life, because if that wasn't there, she would probably hit her head against the concrete and die. When she said that, I had this very strange flash right away. I knew it. We remember ourselves. I remember her from past life, but not the immediate. That I had many life forms that I remember. I remember that we were together. I remember her from somewhere where Macedonia is, somewhere the Sumerian kingdom, the former Sumerian kingdom. She was one of those young ladies that was working around some form of temple, collecting roots, flowers, all kinds of plants to prepare all those sensual massages. I, on the other hand, was some kind of priest or teacher or guardian. I remember that I was in love with her. I was around her a lot. We were very passionate, and I was always trying to make sure that she's okay, that that she was protected, that she had someone that was looking after her. I explained that to her. I noticed that to her, I most likely that was a story trying to get into her pants. That was absolutely not intended that way. We did communicate for a while. When I was writing my first book, she gave me permission to print one of the photos where we are together. And I did. That was really crappy book, because that was edited only by me. There were so many mistakes in that. That book is no longer available on Amazon, by the way. But after a few years, I think 2 years, she distanced herself from me for some unknown to me reason. I don't know. And that is why I decided not to use her real name, because I know that she's in a relationship and someone can find out that I am talking about her on YouTube or something like that, and that may complicate her relationship, and I don't want to be involved in any cases like that, because I know that behind the scenes, we promised ourselves that if one of us will figure out what was our relationship prior to this life, then we were going never try to interfere in each other's life. And I'm keeping that promise, and I never had any intention to be some kind of home wrecker or interfere in her relationships whatsoever. But the story does not end there. I am the guy who sponsored them as a young couple that were emigrating to Canada. Her husband was here first. I signed for him, and I helped lots of people stay in Canada. Unfortunately, their marriage wasn't happy. He cheated on her when she was back home. It was a few months after the marriage, after the wedding. He already was, having an affair on the side, and he died, I think, in 2000. I don't remember exactly, 2008 or something like that. He passed out because he was an alcoholic. He was a heavy drinker first, but then the alcohol took over his life, and he collapsed somewhere close to the elevator, and people were passing by not giving him any help, and that's when he passed out. I saw him a few times after he passed. He was trying to get my attention, but I was ignoring him. Because he was sometimes jealous to me, and I was like, oh no, I am not going to talk to you. And at some point I decided, what do you want? What is it? And he passed to me information about Xenia. He showed me what is waiting for her and some stuff about her life. He also gave me insight about his daughter, the younger one. He kept showing. He did that a few times, and finally on one of those meetings I told him that he's dead. He was very surprised. He didn't know. He was hanging around her and the kids for 6 years because he wanted to make sure that they are okay. And last month, when I met her ex, the moment she was leaving, that was a few weeks or week prior to Xenia was leaving for Poland, and I remember that he was in a hurry. He was anxious he was telling me something about missing signature on some document, because he bought a property back home in Poland, and she was going to sell that to take the money and make it with that. And he just was saying that there is some kind of signature missing, and he has to do that. Then at that point I told him, look, pal, you are already dead. And when I told him that, he wasn't buying that. He said, what are you talking about? I said, look around you. You are dead already. And then he looked to his backside, and then I think he noticed that his father was waiting across the street, and that's when he left. And then I saw him a few days after that. He was very happy. He was a completely different person. When I saw him, he was well dressed. I remember this really gorgeous, nice blue shirt, smiling, and he just kind of passed by, and I know that was thank you for letting me know that I am already not part of this world. In those interactions, I had feeling that he wanted me to pass some message to his younger daughter. He wanted to tell her something that was important, because I understand that she struggles, that she has a little bit of tough time to deal with the reality. So am I going to do that? Highly unlikely, but it's still possible that I can do that. The reason for all those NDEs that so many people are having all over the world is to give us a hope, to give us better insight in the process that is happening after we lose conscience, even though that is incorrect, because we never lose conscience. Even when we go to sleep, we are always conscious. Just our brain is not giving us access to that. We are always conscious because the core of I am is not brain. Right now, the contact with the physical forms around you is through the brain. And once the brain shuts down, We don't have any connection with the outside. We are on the inside. And when we are on the inside, we have a completely different set of rules, different recognition. We understand this world in a bit different way. There are parts, for example, there is a spectrum of colors that we don't have it here. And there is no way to explain what those colors are. There is nowhere a reference to that. But there are colors much more beautiful than here, way more beautiful than here. But how to explain that? We can't, because the brain has no concept how they look. The aftermath of that NDE that I experienced, the restructure of the connection of the neural pathways in my brain opened a doorway to a completely different world that I was suspecting is there, but I had no access to. Now I do. So it is very interesting, and I am gonna be sharing that with you as much as I can. But some of the stuff that I am going to present to you is really, really unusual. This world is very straightforward, not complicated, but it's men that complicated everything. Misinformation at its best in all fields. This is not like I am pointing fingers at specific part of the science. All of it, and it's collapsing, it's crashing, and you know that, you can see that in front of your eyes. And this is not crashing because someone is attacking them. The people that consider themselves a scientist, they are destroying themselves by their own means, because you need to be honest with yourself first. This very strange episode of my NDE, although when I was asking questions, Dr. Gioletto and Nurs, they couldn't give me straight answer if anything happened in that room. The only convincing and compelling evidence I had from Xenia when I asked her what happened and what was going on, and when we compare how she saw this happening and the way I saw that happening, even though we didn't see each other, I didn't have any clue that she was in the hospital together with me at the same time. I find out that days later from my ex, when she told me that, well, this wasn't just your vision, she actually was in hospital and she was hurt very badly. And then I knew that whatever was happening in that room, that was real, that really happened. But as I said, the door opened to something that I wasn't expecting, that the door is going to be open that far. In the past 30 years, I met people that are already deceased, like Alan Watts, Bob Monroe, Sylvia Brown. I even met Buddha. I even met Queen Elizabeth. That was the most bizarre encounter I have had with her. I will let you know about that some other time. Any other strange things? Oh yeah, there were, I was in the middle of space many times. I was on another asteroids and somewhere in between. The space smells like electricity. It's a fact. Some of those astronauts are saying that the smell of space is much like welding. To me, it was a little bit different, like a toast and welding, like those two together. Other weird stuff, for example, the micronova. Yes, I saw that. Those are things that when something like that happens, makes you wonder why, what is the reason behind. And not long ago, I received answers to that. And to my huge, big surprise, I agreed to that. I signed up on this. And it's not an easy task to be in my skin, which my teacher told me in '96 already. She told me that the most uncomfortable thing for you is being in your physical form. Because outside of that, you are marvelous. You are like this magnificent, very colorful butterfly. But when you are in your physical form, you are you just want to die. And yes, this sometimes shows up because I am more and more uncomfortable right now in the place where I am working. I'm still working part-time, not for very long. It's time to retire and focus all my energies and everything, all the resources towards producing as much as I can to explain the world in the way I see it, the way the teachers are showing to me, the way they are presenting to me. So it is very painful for me to be engaged in small talks, water cooler talks about this us or that us. Not the worst subjects. We talk sometimes behind each other back. That's a gossip, you understand. It's so frustrating for me. This is killing me daily, but it's already going away. People notice that already, that I am not the same person that I used to be 2 years ago. It's completely different. The transition is already taking place. So to what extent and how far? I have pretty good idea, but it's scary even for me. Okay, so thank you for being with me here today, and see you in the next episode.